I love anniversaries. You know that? I love anniversaries, and here's why. They're a way to remember important things. Birthdays even count. You know, it's your birthday. Let's remember your life. It's your wedding anniversary. Let's remember that. Interesting things happen on anniversaries. Did you know that? You remember 1 year ago to the day, speaking of anniversaries, 1 year ago to the day, New York Mayor Eric Adams got up at a podium and said this.
I don't see an ending to this. This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City. We're getting 10,000 migrants a month.
The topic of immigration, illegal and legal, remember, these people abuse legal immigration just as much. The topic of legal immigration or illegal immigration can be treated as kind of a side issue, almost a byproduct. If you elect Democrats, the border's going to end up being open. But that really doesn't drive the point home the way the point needs to be driven home. You see, flooding our nation, flooding Western countries with barbarians from all over the planet is not a side issue. It's one of the main things, maybe the main mission of the system, of the globalist elites, of our evil system here. It happened on day one when Joe Biden took over. Day one. They didn't wait till day two. They found every single executive order Trump had put into place to lock down the border, and they immediately threw all that stuff in the paper shredder and said, oh my gosh, let them all in, more. And then they took as much of your money, and they still are doing this, as humanly possible, and they're flying them in. They're busing them in. They are bringing them in mass, as fast as humanly possible. Does it sound like a side issue for them, or does it sound like the issue for them? Flooding your country with people to replace you at work, replace you at the ballot box is everything to the evil people who run the world now. Now that brings me back to Eric Adams. Here we are. It's election season. Oh my gosh, it's almost voting day. Everything now is about PR. We want to make Democrats look good. We want to make Republicans look bad. So it's not a small thing that the feds raided Eric Adams, raided his mansion, indictment, these felonies, bribery, all kinds of charges. So why would they do such a thing? Eric Adams committed the mortal sin. As a member of the system, and remember, I'm sure he's corrupt, but as a member of the system who's undoubtedly done corrupt things to get elected, he then, on camera, with that microphone in his hands, stood up and complained about the one main mission of the globalist elite. They love it. It's everything to them. They've wrapped their arms around immigration and they hold it at night. And that man had the gall to stand up on camera and give a voice to the people who are angry about it. And don't you think for a second it was an accident that 1 year to the day of him doing that, the feds came barging through his door. Eric Adams knows it.
I always knew that if I stood my ground for all of you, that I would be a target. And a target I became. The federal government did nothing as its broken immigration policies overloaded our shelter system with no relief. I put the people of New York before party and politics.
Eric Adams, defiant and honest. Eric Adams, he knows exactly why his door got kicked in. And again, I'm no Eric Adams fan, and I'm certainly not here to tell you Eric Adams is a by-the-book guy who never broke the law. He's a New York Democrat. He's a criminal. I'm reasonably sure of that. I have no doubt. But there are many, many Democrat criminals in many, many strongholds across the country. But there is precisely one mayor who had his door kicked in by the feds, and that is the one who got a little too loud complaining about the main goal of the system. And that brings me to why this is actually a national crisis. What's happening in New York right now is a national crisis issue. Why? It's not about Eric Adams or New York. You I just went on this long rant about how it was the federal government and this is all political. You already knew that. Before you turned on I'm Right Tonight, you knew that. We have a trust issue where our institutions are so corrupted, evil, and poisonous, the American people don't believe anything anymore. And while we have to be like that, it's important that you be like that, that's disastrous for a country. And shame on all the people who've brought us to this place as a country. Let's talk to Sean Davis about that. Joining me now, my friend, CEO, co-founder of The Federalist, Sean Davis. Sean, I have no doubt that Eric Adams is a corrupt scumbag. He's a Democrat from the city of New York, after all. But also, we all know the deal. And I guess maybe today I'm a bit heartened. How about that for a college word, Sean? I'm a bit heartened at seeing the response to Eric Adams being arrested. Everyone seems to get the game now. It's been wonderful to see.
Yeah, it has been. And I had the instinctively same response as you did, which was, yeah, I'm sure he's corrupt. He's a Democrat. So I think it's par for the course. But I mean, what was this guy doing that Hunter Biden wasn't doing? I saw earlier that they were accusing him of having accepted $100,000 in bribes. Now, that's a huge amount of money, and it's clearly a lot of bribes. That's like an afternoon for Hunter Biden. This guy was collecting diamonds from Chinese oligarchs and millions from the wife of the mayor of Moscow, who's representing the Chinese spy chief, Patrick Ho. Nothing happened to that guy. So I think it's super weird that Eric Adams, it wasn't until after he attacked the Biden administration for their immigration nonsense that they decided to come after him. Like, law enforcement to them is a tool of political oppression and punishment. And watching how this has all played out, I'm not sure you'll ever convince me otherwise.
Sean, it is a good thing and a terrible thing that the American people have woken up to this. Obviously, American people need to wake up to the fact their government is evil and corrupt and a criminal organization. But it's also terrible for the country that now, as soon as we see a major indictment, if the DOJ do anything, we automatically assume they're lying. We are so far away from having the necessary amount of trust in our institutions, Sean. It's just very difficult to see how we put Humpty Dumpty back together again.
I agree. And it's interesting looking back, 20, 30 years and thinking of all the different lies and lines we've been fed and realizing, those was probably all nonsense. I think you and I, just living in the media universe, are probably a little ahead of the curve. And so now you have lots of people finally waking up to it. But you're right. It doesn't lead to any good place because trust that's destroyed, that was built over generations, doesn't come back overnight. It takes a really, really long time to build that back up. And now that we have a regime at the federal level, which we all understand exists to persecute the regime's political opponents, that puts the country in a really dangerous place because only a couple things can happen. One, the regime can realize that it's been bad and that its behavior is unconscionable and it should stop, or it can keep doing it. Like those are pretty much our options there. I suspect they're going to do option 2, and that doesn't lead us anywhere good in this country.
It doesn't lead us anywhere good, Sean, and I think you and I both know, obviously you were a student of history, it's very, very rare for a corrupt, evil regime to just own it, get up in front of the camera and say, we've been bad boys and we're going to fix all that. So assuming you're right that it's going to be option 2, doesn't that leave us with red states, maybe a coalition of red states, no, not civil war or anything like that, joining together against the federal government in certain cases? Don't we have to start changing the idea of America now?
I don't know if we need to change the idea of America. I think we almost need to go back to what the idea of America was for 200 years, which was a collection of states who understood that they had ultimate sovereignty, who banded together for a common purpose under the rubric of the United States of America. And somewhere along the way, we got away from that and we started treating states as subsidiaries of the federal government. They just exist at the pleasure of the federal government. They get all their money from the federal government. So I don't think they need to change. I think we need to restore the rightful place of states in this union, which is as the top power. They were not meant to be these little subservient serfs in feudal areas for the federal government to rule over. But I'll tell you, I'm skeptical that'll happen because I was alive during 2020, and I know you were, and we saw how our countrymen and our governors reacted as we got locked in our homes. People got punished for not taking an experimental shot. I'll tell you, I'm kind of down on the country now, not just because the federal government's totally corrupt and evil, but because it seems like so many of our leaders, even at the state level, are just a bunch of feckless cowards.
Yeah, man, they sure are. Lickspittles. You're the one who reintroduced that word to me. I love that word. It's exactly what these people are. Lickspittles. I use it all the time, Sean, and I give you no credit. Speaking of open corruption, Vladimir, I don't know, I see his name spelled 1,000 different ways, whatever. Zelensky comes over here. He does a campaign stop for Kamala Harris, craps on Trump, craps on Vance, and then Joe Biden strokes him an $8 billion check of taxpayer money. It really is amazing how brazen the corruption is. It's just right out in the open, right in your face.
It is. And as bad as it sounds when you describe it that way, it's actually worse. Because you have to remember what happened before this little campaign stop. We had an American mercenary out in Ukraine who's seemingly unemployed and broke, allegedly throwing money around, talking about getting fake passports to bring people over to Ukraine to fight Russia. That guy nearly took a shot at Donald Trump, the former and likely future president. So you have this Ukraine mercenary who gets busted trying to kill President Trump. And then a week later, they invite him over here, Zelensky, to take rhetorical shots at Trump. And then the response, not just from Harris or Biden, they're Democrats, so we expect that nonsense. Mitch McConnell invites the guy to Congress and does a photo op with him and all but hands out a gigantic novelty check to him. Like, it's a little too on the nose. If you were writing a spy novel about a plot to take out a political opponent and you put that in there, the editors would say, come on, that's absurd. It's a little too on the nose. And yet we've all witnessed that over the last week and a half.
Sean, I'll be honest, it's something I find a little bit ominous how out in the open it is. As you just mentioned, it's just like very similar to me what they did during COVID when they would run to the camera every 5 minutes and scold you for leaving your home, for taking your mask off. And then that very same politician would always get busted hopping on a plane, flying to Florida for margaritas with the girls. It's really kind of a us versus the royalty mentality, and the royalty doesn't seem to be intimidated by the peasants.
No, and I actually find that so much more disheartening than them doing it in secret, which is what they did, for the last 40, 50 years, probably longer. They now feel so comfortable rubbing our noses in it that they don't even hide it anymore. That's a terrifying level of arrogance and a sense of superiority and a feeling of comfort in their corruption that they have, that they don't even feel like they need to hide it anymore. I find that terrifying.
Yeah, me too. Sean, thank you, my brother. I appreciate you. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.